This is video 4 in the series, and hopefully the last one in modeling this toaster for beginners. And this is where we left off. So we've got the main body of the toaster with the hole. We've got the little depressible lever, and we've got a little knob. All right, nothing complicated, nothing too fancy. We're just getting used to using Blender and, basically making cool shapes. And now what we want to do is we want to put materials on it so we can render it. Okay, so I think what I'll do first of all is I am going to put down like a ground floor. Just very simply, I'm going to bring in a plane, but I want to bring that plane in right at the center of the stage. So I'm going to go Shift C, and that's going to move my 3D cursor right back to the middle. If I press 1 and I look from the front, I can see that my model is not laying on this red line on the x-axis. And the 3D cursor is kind of at the bottom of this little hole. So I'm going to hit A to select everything. That's all the pieces of my model. And I'm going to move it up until it's pretty much looks like it's sitting on the floor there. Just roughly like that. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in a plane. Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and I'm going to scale it S10. 10 times like that. That's reasonable. Yeah, we'll see if it's sitting on the floor. I'll probably render looking at it, something like that. So we'll see, like this will be like the floor or the table or something in the background. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is add a few lights to our scene, and then we'll do some materials. So the way I'll do that is I'll go Shift A, and I'll scroll down to Lamp, and I'm going to choose Area. And then I'm going to pull up, pull over, and I'm going to come over to this side. Okay, now it's a tiny little square, so I'm going to go S, and I'm just going to pull until it's somewhat bigger. And I am going to rotate in the Y so that the orange line you see here sort of goes off diagonally. So I'm going to go RY, goes like that. It's actually a white dotted line. Okay, and now I'm going to go RZ so that that dotted line is pointing at my model. There we go. Okay, over here on the side I see this little icon. That's for the light. Click it and you'll see it says surface emission. That means it's going to emit light. The color is going to be white and the strength is 100. If I do a quick render preview, we could see the effects of this light. All right, so I'm going to come down here for solid. I'm going to choose render. Now in version 2.8, the shortcut is changed, but for Blender 2.79, it's Shift Z. And you can see it's shining down. Okay, let's change this color to sort of a yellowish color. Let's change the strength to something like 30. Let's do a Shift Z. All right. Now I'm going to take this light, still selected, Shift D to copy it. I'm going to pull it over to this side. And I'm going to rotate in the Z until it's pointing at my model. I may bring this one down a little and just, let's see, I'll just look and I'll just go R. It'll rotate it a bit. It might be a little bit off. I'm going to make this one 10 and a slightly bluish color. Let's see if that's done anything for us. Okay. Now just position your lights a little bit. Okay, we're starting to see it. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in another light, and I think I'll start a new one. Shift A, Lamp, Area. And bring it back here, scale it a bit. Let's rotate this one in the X, RX, and we'll face the back right there. I'll make this one 20. I'll leave it white for now. And let's see if we can detect that light off the back. Starting to see some fireflies here. Okay, hopefully denoising will help us with that. Okay, now going to save the scene, and I'm going to bring in a camera. It's going to come in right at the 3D cursor. Shift A, camera. I'm going to pull it this way and pull it up a little bit. And you can see that it's not facing my model, so I'm going to rotate in the Z. RZ. I'm going to turn it like this. Okay, I'm going to pull it back and up. And then I still can't really see anything too well. So I'm going to hit N, and I'm going to scroll until I find under View, Lock Camera to View. And if that's closed, it's under View, Lock Camera to View. Hit N to close that. And by the way, I should turn on my screencast keys. Okay. Now I can hit the 0 on the numpad, and I can look through the camera, and I can just use the typical, pan and tilt and stuff. I'm going to press the home button, and that'll maximize things. And let's go Shift Z, and I can see my toaster. Okay. Another thing we can do is we can come to this icon which represents the world, choose Use Nodes, and we can adjust the background color. If I want to get some more ambient light, we can do that. All right, and that'll make it brighter. And then we can adjust our area lights as well. Okay, so we're getting there. Okay, so we're going to make some materials now. I'm going to select the body of the toaster. I've got 3 main things I guess I got to put materials on. This, the little handle, and the dial with the arrow on it. I'm going to select this, and we're going to go into something called the node editor. And you can get to it a number of different ways. A lot of people will, from this view, will come up here and click compositing, and that'll give you a few screens. It'll give you the main 3D view right here. I'm just zooming in. All right, or I can press 0 and look through the camera. It'll give you sort of a UV window, and it'll give you this area here, which you can do a number of different things with. I'm actually going to go back to default, and I'm going to grab these lines here, and I'm going to pull to separate my window. Again, it'll differ in 2.8. Your interface looks a bit different, and your windows are a bit different. T and T. Let's shut that down briefly, and then start it up again. All right, so I'm going to have my 3D view here through my camera, and over here I'm going to click here, and I'm going to switch over to Node Editor. I'm going to hit N to close this, so I can sort of maximize my view. I can pull a little bit like that. Okay, so I can go Shift Z is the shortcut, or you can just use this to go between solid and rendered view, or material view in this case. All right. First thing I think I'll do is I'm going to select the ground plane. You can see the little outline of it. In fact, I'll go to camera view, and then we'll just select the plane. Okay, it's selected. And I'm just going to, for that, I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to come back to the materials. That's this circle here. Click on it. And you see this new button. I'm going to press new. And you can see stuff happening in the node editor right here. It's added some boxes. Let's say material output. That by default will always go in there. And a diffuse color. And if you look over here on this side under the materials, you can see surface diffuse, the color, it's the same. So this area kind of emulates this area, but this area is much more powerful. I mean, in a graphical way, and you join stuff up. But over here, I'm just going to change this color to sort of a darker color. Notice you can see that updating here because I'm in material for my viewport shading. You can also see it updating here. If I change it here, all right, it changes over there. If we now press 0 and just look through the camera and I go Shift Z, you can see my background, or my floor essentially is that color. And I can just choose a color. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Okay, that's all I needed to do for that. I can come up here and double click and name this and call it floor. That might be helpful. Now I want to do the toaster. So I'm going to click on the toaster, and this stuff disappears because there's no material on here. I'm going to click new here or here. I'll click it here. and it'll throw down the same kind of stuff. All right. Now, I believe in 2.8, when you create a material, it defaults to something called the principled BSDF. This is just the diffuse. I'm going to switch this to the principled BSDF. We're going to do very simple materials. With this selected, I'm going to go Shift S, and then I'll say switch type to. Under shader, I'm going to choose principled BSDF. That didn't really change anything appreciably, but here I can change my base color, or here, and I'm going to change it a little bit more gray and a little bit bluish, I think. And then under here, I'm going to change the metallic. I'm going to try 0.5 and the roughness 0.2. Let's try that. And let's just, with your mouse cursor over here, not here, over here, go Shift Z if you're in 2.79, and you start to see what looks a little bit like metal. Now, let's come up here and call this metal. This won't really be metal, but we'll try it. I might change the roughness to 0.4. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. So we've got some metal on here. Let's make a material for this. Let's click New. It'll put down the default stuff. Let's, on this, select it, Shift S to change it to principled BSDF. And I want this to be black. So I'm going to scroll down to black. And I'm going to make this somewhat metal. I'll go 0.4. Just choose numbers and try it. And roughness. Those are the two main ones I'm going to affect. I'm going to make that 0.4 as well. Bring my mouse over here and go Shift Z and just have a little look at that. Now, I'm going to go out of camera view so I can zoom in from different angles and see if I like that effect. See, it's a little bit shiny there. Okay, maybe I want it 0.5 for this on the metallic. Maybe a little bit more shiny. I'm going to, and this I'm going to call black. All right. I'm going to select the dial, and out of here, this drop down, I'm going to choose the one I want. I'm going to choose black for that. Shift Z. Let's look. Okay. So I'm starting to get something. And I'm looking in the rendered shading, viewport shading, and so it takes a little while to update. I want to put in some silver on this dial. Let's just have a quick look at over here. All right, I've got silver. I've got the same metal right in the middle here. And so we're going to do that. I'm going to go Shift Z to come out of that back to solid view. And I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to click the dial. And I'm going to go into edit mode for that dial. And I'm going to have to select the faces that I want that material on. So I'm going to come in here. And I can do this, well, I'll do it in material view. I'm going to press S for the paint select tool and start just selecting these faces. Now, I think it's best to be in face selection. If I get too much, I'm just going to Control Z. No, I'm not. Escape and Control Z. I'll do it again until I get all of these ones. And if I need to change my angle, Escape to drop it, change it, press the period key if those are. Oh, what happened here? There we go. It's under the floor. Yeah, the floor is sometimes in the way. I sometimes put the floor and the camera and the lights on another layer. Okay, so I've got all that selected here. I didn't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, scroll your mouse wheel to move that. I'm in face selection here, you can see. Now, I want to put that metal material, but I don't see it here. All I've got available for this object is the black. So I'm going to click the plus, and that'll have a new slot, and I'll choose the metal material. Now I have black or metal I can choose from for this object. All right, before I had just the black. Now I have the metal. I've got this selected, so I'm going to go assign. I want to assign that metal material to that. Now, come back into object view here. or object mode. And you may notice that your material didn't fully go in the area you want it to be in. And that's based on the subdivision surface and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand what I've selected one more time, a little bit further out, and that'll put the metal material a bit further out. You have to experiment with this. If it doesn't go fully in the area, try expanding your selection. And the way to do that is if you've got sort of a central region, you can expand symmetrically out levels and levels, okay, or in. Watch this. I'm going to go I'm going to press the control button and the plus sign on my numeric keyboard on the far right. I'm going to go control, press that down, plus, and it says control numpad plus, and it's jumped out to here. Watch this, control plus, control plus, control plus. Now, if I just select, say, this, and I do control plus, it'll start grabbing more and more, but it won't come out equally necessarily anyhow. But if I've got all this stuff selected in the middle, like that, and I go control plus, with the metal material highlighted, click assign, that will push the metal material out to the next level, essentially. I can go shift Z now, and we can see the metal material is where we wanted it. Let's look through the camera, shift Z, and we get that. We also have this right there. So there's no material on there. I can choose one of these materials. If I want metal, I can try that. All right. We can do that. We can come to the world and up the light that way by changing the color, making it a bit brighter. Let's save that, and let's drag these dots till I see the arrow and release. And now I've full screen back to my 3D view. And I can look at this again. Now, it's not thrilling. There's no real good reflections except a little bit of the lights. We can work on this material as well. Let's go back to the material tab here, and I can, instead of going into node editor, I can see it says principled BSDF. I've got my color. Maybe that's a little bit too blue. Come over here if I want. I can make it a little bit lighter. I can adjust the metallic, 0.5 roughness. Maybe I wanted 0.3. You're not going to see an appreciable difference, but all right. What I can do is a test render. Let's do that. I'm going to click the camera. A lot of people crank this up to 100%. I'm just going to go 65 for these purposes. Scroll down to sampling. So I've adjusted the size. Sampling under here are for render. Okay. I want the number of samples to be, say, 200. I'll start with 200 and see. And in version 2.79 and 2.8, you can also choose denoising. All right. So save, and I'm going to press F12. And that'll give you a better indication of how it's looking than just in the render preview. I see that we haven't done the base yet. That'll make it a little bit more interesting to look at. And it'll go around and it will start to render it, little box by box, and it'll denoise it, get rid of some of those fireflies and some of the speckles or whatever you want to call those. It doesn't take too long when you've set the sampling to just 200 or the samples to 200. It doesn't look too bad. There's something that we can do to improve that, but we should also make this black. It doesn't look overly metallic, but I'm fine with that. Okay, I think I can stop the render for now. Come out of camera view, and let's do the little border there. A thing that I like to do, like I said earlier, is deselect. I'm going to take my floor, click my floor, M to move, and that'll come up. Now if you move around, it'll go away. But with the floor selected, M, and just click there. Now it's different in 2.8 again. There are collections instead of layers. But I've now got my floor on the other layer. I'm going to click the light, shift and click that, shift and click that, shift and click that, M, move it over there. So my lights and camera and floor are right on this layer, and my object is here. Now if I go on this layer, just to shift Z, I won't get the actual camera and lights, but if I have to shift and click, so I've got both layers, and then I get that. Okay, so this way I can work on just the object. In order to put the black on here, we're going to have to go into edit mode, and then let's go to just, yeah, I'm in material view. All right. To find the easiest way to do this is we want to put the black material, actually I'll go back to solid so you can see this, on all of this up to about here. So in face selection, I am going to hover my mouse over a line that separates two of these polygons, and I'm going to go Shift and Alt and click. Otherwise, I might Shift and click all the way around. I don't want to do that. Shift and Alt and click, and I get the whole row. Let's try that expand selection thing we did earlier. I mean, I've got a full area. I want to go up one level so that I select all of these. So I could go Control plus, and it gets all of those. Control plus gets all of those. Now hang on, how far do we want to go? Close to the wall. Control plus. Let's try that. I've got all this stuff selected. I'd like to make it black. Let's click on the materials icon, scroll up to the top, and it says right now, well look, all we've got available is metal. If I come down here and I choose black right now, it'll put the black, it'll replace the metal with the black, and the whole thing will become black. Click the plus to add a new slot. Choose black there, and now with that selected, assign. Didn't see anything. Come to here. Now I'm going to leave that selected and go back into object mode, and you can see that it looks pretty good. Shift and click that layer and my camera, and let's have a look. There we go. In camera view, I'm just moving around. Maybe I prefer that angle. Maybe I want the floor a different color. I can click on it and I can lighten it. That might look nicer. Okay, let's do one more thing, and that is in the World tab. Okay, under color, let's click this dot and choose environment texture. When we do that, we get the choice to open or load, if we have one loaded, an environment texture. And those are typically HDR textures. So just search HDR on the internet, and you can find free HDR images. They're just weird images that can be used to cast light. So for example, if I choose this, well, I really like this veranda one here. All right, I click that and open. You don't see anything yet, but if you, well, if I was to hide the plane, no, I didn't hide the plane, hide the plane, Shift Z, you get a different effect here. You're not really seeing it, so let's go Alt H, let's bring that back. Let's look through the camera, and this image is creating light and can actually cast some colors on there. In fact, what I'll do is I'll move the plane out to there, and we'll do this, and you see the image in the background. All right, now if I change the shininess of this, or the metallic, let's go to the materials, and on the metal, if I reduce the roughness, say it's a 0.1, all right, you start to see more reflections. And if I up the metallic to say 0.8, all right, you almost can see some reflections there of the veranda. Okay, bring the floor back. I may not want to keep that floor. Let's try a little, well actually let's get rid of the floor. Let's just take those two. I'm going to press F12 again, and we'll render with that image in the background. Now this doesn't look like real metal. As I said before, there's no scratches or dust or anything like that or imperfections in it, but it'll do for sort of simulated metal for now. And now your toaster is sitting on the, well, in the air on the veranda, similar to this one. That's the same image I used there. And I just put another wood texture down. I could show you how I did that if you like. You start to see some reflections there. Okay, let's stop that render and just move to another spot so you see a bit more of the veranda. Oh, it almost looks like it's sitting on that table. I like that orientation there. There it is. It's sitting on the table. Let's do a bit of a render from there. Nice and shiny. Brand new toaster. Now you can really see reflections. All right. Okay. If you did want to put a little table, well, that brings us into a whole other level, doesn't it? What we could do is we could take this and I could hit S. I could scale it down smaller. Let's get the size of that. And under materials, I can make it just a different color. I can make it sort of brown. Won't look like wood exactly, but let's see what that would look like. Well, you get the picture. All right. Okay, let's go back to our lighter color and not brown. And we'll scale that up again so it fills up the whole space. So all we're getting is the light from the HDR image. We don't see the veranda, but we're still getting light from it. And maybe I do like that position right there. All right, that's a very diffuse looking floor, and it's very similar to my toaster. Looks like a product shot. Let's save that. Let's come to the render tab, and let's increase the samples to 300. And let's just position this a bit more. Save, press render, and we'll let that render through, and then we'll see. Okay, I've just changed the position of my camera, and here is my render. It's not looking too bad. It looks a little boring and all. You may find too much light when you use an HDR image, and maybe you'd want to get rid of some of the extra lights. We could try that. I could get rid of this, and I could try getting rid of maybe this as well, seeing if there's enough light with the HDR image. That will change it quite a bit. The other thing is this floor here is pretty boring, so I'm going to scale it down. This will be the last thing I'll do, and I'll make like a little table. Scale this in the X so it looks like it's sitting on a little table here. All right, and we'll just move it a little bit. Let's say we're going to render from there, and it's going to look like it's sitting on a table on the veranda. Sort of. Very high table right now, but that's fine. That might be a little bit of a better position to do it at. And so what I'll do is I'll show you quickly what you could do for that. Go into top view, and with your plane selected that's going to represent my table, I'm going to go into edit mode, and I've got it all selected, and I'm going to hit U for unwrapping. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything complicated. I'm going to come down to where it says project from view bounds and just click that. It's created a UV map the exact same dimensions as this. I'm going to separate my window, change this window over here to UV image editor, and you may see that was the last render just go X, and you will see a square that completely fills up the UV space. Okay, there's a little grid underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to put an image on here of some wood, so it looks like it's on a wood table. So now we come to open, find a texture on the internet that you like. I'll just go for the same one that I often use, this one here that I just found. Open. You can see it here. So you now see the image of the wood, but you don't see it here. And that's because we need this to be a material to apply it to here. So we need to do some work in the node editor. So I'm going to click here, switch this window to a node editor. And all we see is the diffuse color which we had added to that plane before. There it is. All right, I can leave it like that. Now I'll switch this to a principled. With it selected, Shift S, shader, principled. Same color still. Metallic is 0, roughness is 0.5. That's the default settings. I want to add that image of the wood to this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go Shift A or Add, Texture. It's a texture, Image Texture. And just pull my mouse and drop, and click to drop it. In here, I'm going to choose that wood that we just put down. So it's in memory. It's like in the clipboard. Click it. Still don't see anything. Connect this yellow color dot to the base color of this one. That'll overwrite the base color with the color of this. Now we can see the wood. If I look at my camera, and I go Shift Z, I can see I have a wood texture. Now there's more that can be done there, but I'm not going to do any more right now. I'm going to go back to full view. Now this table doesn't have any real depth, so you may want to adjust your angle so it looks like that. And really this is at a different height than that, so this may or may not work well for us. But we're not going to worry too much about that right now. So I'm just going to do that. Position it where we want. Yeah. Let's say that's where we want. Let's say that's what we want right there. Maybe that's the floor. Doesn't look like the floor. Let's try a render from that position. F12. I'll show you one other thing with the HDR image in a minute. So depending on how shiny we make this, we can start getting reflections now from the wood. It'll start to become a little bit more interesting, look a little bit more like metal. You may see the bricks, or you may see the trees in the background. And it may also not look that real with this image in the background and this wood. It looks like they're different scenes. And so I'll show you something else in just a moment. So I've got this set here at 300 samples, which is not too much. You might want more. You might need more in here, but we'll see how denoising works. It's looking pretty clean. Okay. Good, good. And again, this video is not all about how to do a perfect render or lighting, because that's not my area. Bottle looks nice on that table, though. I don't really like the veranda thing very much, so I am happy with that. Let's do this. Let's hit escape. Let's come back to deselect that. Let's come back to the world tab where we loaded our HDR image. There it is, called veranda. And let's scroll down to where it says ray visibility and uncheck camera. Okay. Now if I do a render preview, the veranda's gone, but we still get all the light and the reflections. You just don't see it. Now I can adjust this. And assuming we like that angle still, we'll just see a black background, which may or may not be an improvement. Let's try it over on this side. Nah, I don't like that side as much. I do like it from there. And I think I will do my final render right from about there. Okay, so final render, and then we'll come back. Here's my final render. Okay, and we can see a nice model of our toaster on our wood background floating in the blackness of space. All right, so in this series of 4 videos, we've looked at modeling the base of the toaster in the hole, the lever here in the knob, and we did a little bit of lighting, camera positioning, and bringing in an HDR image to provide some more light and reflections. So you don't see a heck of a lot of them, but they're in there. And a very basic UV unwrapping, very basic, to put the wood on there. So find some textures that you like on the internet, some wood, and some HDR images, some free ones for lighting and reflections, and you can do something very similar. I hope that was helpful to you. I'd like to know if it was, if this is a good pace, if it's too fast or too slow, and thanks for watching.